At some point, and most women over 60 know the exact moment I mean, you stop spending your breath defending choices that were never anyone else's business in the first place. I remember sitting in my kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon about a year after my divorce was final, on the phone with a woman I had known for 20 years, and realizing halfway through her question that I had begun to form an explanation, and then simply did not finish it. If you have ever felt that particular shift, not anger, not coldness, just a quiet refusal to keep offering up the inside of your life for someone else's approval, this is for you. These are 8 things. They are not small. And I think by the time we get to the end, you may understand something about why this stage of life feels the way it does, and why that is not the tragedy people want to make it. There is a particular exhaustion that comes from spending decades being legible to people, from explaining your decisions, softening your choices, making sure the people around you were comfortable with who you were becoming. Women of our generation were taught, not in words but in 1,000 small corrections, that our lives required justification, that the space we took up needed to be earned and earned again, and then explained. And then, for a lot of us, somewhere around 60, something shifted. Not all at once, not dramatically, quietly. The way light changes in a room when a cloud moves. What I am about to tell you is the part of this I held back for a long time, because I was not sure anyone would understand it. I think it is the part that actually matters. The decision to leave, or to accept that it was over, is one of the most private things a person can carry. And yet it is also one of the most publicly requested. I was asked the same question, in different words, by different people, for nearly 2 years after my marriage ended. We were at a dinner party, it was late, and a woman I genuinely liked leaned across the table and said, "But what really happened?" The wine glasses were still on the table, the candles were low, and I remember feeling for the first time that I did not owe her an answer. Marriages are social contracts, which means their endings feel to other people like public events. The people in your life, friends, family, neighbors, had a version of your marriage in their heads. When it ends, they want to reconcile the story. That is human. But the reconciling is their need, not your obligation. What I came to understand, slowly, is that the reason I kept explaining was not that anyone deserved the explanation. It was that I had not yet made peace with the decision myself. When I did, the need to explain dissolved almost entirely. And there is something that comes after that realization that changed the shape of everything. The relationship between a mother and her grown children is one of the most complicated things I know. And one of the cruelties of this stage is that it often requires explaining the nature of that complication to people who have simpler versions of what that relationship should look like. There was a period after the divorce when I did not see my older daughter for almost 4 months. We were both processing. We both needed space. A relative, kind-intentioned, called to tell me she was worried. She said, "I just think you should make more effort." I remember standing at the window looking at nothing, and how long it took me to say anything at all. People outside a family see its shape, but not its texture. They see frequency, how often you visit, how often you call, without understanding that a daughter who needs 3 months of silence before she can talk might need exactly that, and that honoring it is an act of love, not neglect. The explanation for why rarely fits in a sentence. She came back, not because I pushed, but because I did not. The people who needed me to explain that choice never fully understood it, and I stopped needing them to. But what happened next was not what I expected, and I think it might surprise you too. Living alone at this age is still read by much of the world as a problem to be solved, as evidence of failure or of abandonment or of eccentricity. The idea that a woman might choose it, deliberately, clearly, with full knowledge, seems to require a level of explanation that the same choice, made by a man, somehow does not. I moved into my apartment on a Thursday in November. I remember unpacking my own kitchen and feeling something I had not felt in a very long time, that the space was entirely, uncomplicatedly mine. I put my coffee cups where I wanted them. Nobody has ever moved them. That sounds small. It was not small. We absorbed the message very early that a woman's contentment should be organized around other people, that aloneness is a waiting room, not a destination. And so when someone chooses to live alone at 63, the people around them hear it as a statement about grief or failure, because those are the only categories available to them. The explanation I used to offer, I just need some time to myself, I'll probably think about things differently later, was not true. I just had not yet given myself permission to say, this is what I want, and I do not need to make it smaller to make it acceptable. That is when I understood the part of this I am still not sure how to say out loud. Keeping busy is the phrase the world uses when it is uncomfortable with a woman sitting still. It is offered as advice, as comfort, as check-in. Are you keeping busy? With a gentle urgency underneath it, as if stillness at this age is a warning sign. I spent a winter doing very little. I read, I walked. I sat in my living room some afternoons and did not fill the silence with anything. More than one person, good people, caring people, called to ask how I was, and when I told them honestly that I was mostly just being quiet, I could feel the discomfort travel down the phone line. Maybe look into a class, someone said, or volunteering. We were raised in a culture that equates activity with health and stillness with depression. But for a lot of women at this stage, the stillness is not absence, it is arrival. It is what happens when you finally stop managing everyone else's experience of your life and allow yourself to have your own. I stopped explaining the winter. I stopped assuring people I was fine and then listing evidence. They needed the list. I had stopped needing to provide it. And there is something that comes after that realization that changed the shape of everything. Not all friendships survive the version of you that emerges at 60. Some were built around the couple, the career, the busyness, the identity you carried for 30 years. When that changes, some friendships quietly rearrange themselves. And the social expectation is that you will explain this, that you will have a reason that makes sense to the person on the other side of it. There was a friendship, 22 years, that I let go of in the year after my divorce. Not with a conversation, not with an explanation. I just stopped calling as often, and she stopped calling too, and eventually the silence had a shape to it that felt more honest than anything I could have said. A mutual friend asked me about it at Christmas. Did something happen between you two? I said, not really. That was the truest thing I could offer. Friendships that end without a clear event are the hardest ones for people to accept, because there is no story to receive. People want the story. They want the fight, the betrayal, the moment. But some friendships simply outlive the version of you they were built for. That is not a failure. It is honest. What I stopped needing to explain was this: that the letting go was its own kind of care, that the friendship was real, even if it did not last, that I was allowed to make space for what came next. But what happened next was not what I expected, and I think it might surprise you too. The question comes dressed as concern. Are you seeing anyone? And underneath it, unspoken but present, is the assumption that you should want to be. That the correct response to the end of a long relationship is to find a replacement, or to be actively working toward one. About 18 months after the divorce, someone set me up on a dinner. He was kind, the restaurant was warm, and I sat there across from a perfectly reasonable person and realized, around the salad course, that I did not want to be there at all. Not because of him, because I was not finished being with myself yet. I had not told anyone that truth before that evening. I drove home and sat in my car in the car park for a while before going in. The pressure to partner is so woven into the fabric of how we understand a good life that choosing not to, or not yet, or not now, reads to many people as sadness, as giving up, as failing to believe you deserve something. It is rarely any of those things. It is sometimes simply knowing what you need, even when that is harder to explain than what everyone else expects. I do not explain this anymore, not because the explanation is complicated, it is actually quite simple, but because anyone who truly understands what this stage feels like does not need it. That is when I understood the part of this I am still not sure how to say out loud. How a woman in her 60s spends her own money remains, somehow, a matter of collective opinion. Whether she is spending too much on herself or not enough on the grandchildren, or making choices that alarm the people around her, the running commentary on women's financial decisions does not quiet with age. I booked a trip to Portugal, alone, for 3 weeks. My sister called it brave. A close friend called it escapism. Someone else asked me whether I had really thought about the cost. I had thought about the cost. I had saved for it. I had also spent 35 years thinking about the cost of things before anyone else's needs were considered, and I did not say any of that. I just went. Women of our generation were the financial managers of everyone else's comfort for most of our adult lives. Our own pleasures were last on the list, and when we moved them earlier, it registered to people as selfishness, even when it was simply sanity. The discomfort others feel about how we spend our money is almost always about their assumptions, not our choices. Portugal was 3 weeks of realizing that I had spent a lifetime being a reliable explanation, that I could be something else now, that something else did not require a justification, and there is something that comes after that realization that changed the shape of everything. This is the one that contains all the others, because at some point, the people who knew you before look at you and say, sometimes gently, sometimes not, you seem different. And there is an unspoken question underneath it. What happened to you, and is it something I should be worried about? My oldest friend said it to me about 2 years after everything changed. We were walking, autumn, the leaves were just past their peak, and she turned to me mid-sentence and said, "You know, you're not the same." She did not mean it unkindly. She was right. I thought about what to say for a very long time, and then I said, "No, I'm not." And we walked on. The people who knew us inside long marriages, long careers, long versions of our lives have their own grief when we change. They lose something too, the predictability, the familiar role we played. And so, you seem different is sometimes an invitation for explanation, and sometimes it is something quieter, a loss they have not yet named. What I stopped trying to explain was this, that the difference is not a wound, that the person they see now is not a diminished version of who I was before. She is what was there all along, underneath the explaining. 8 things. 8 doors I stopped opening for people who had not earned the view inside. I want to be clear about something. This is not about becoming cold. It is not about building walls or deciding that you owe nobody anything. Most of the women I know who have reached this place are warmer than they have ever been, more present, more honest, more genuinely available to the people they choose to be available to. What changes is the energy spent in the other direction. The constant low hum of managing other people's comfort with who you are. When it stops, when you finally let it stop, you do not feel liberated exactly. Not the way the word suggests, big and bright and sudden. You just feel quieter. And that quiet, it turns out, was there all along, waiting. If something here stayed with you, if it named something you have been carrying, or something you are only just beginning to put down, there is more of this here. New stories every week. I am glad you found this space.